Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Parivrajaka Ashtotar Shishimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna, Gopa Gopinath, Shyama Kunda, Radha Kunda, Giri Govardhana ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Shri Mayapur Dham ki, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Shri Yamuna Maya ki, Ganga Maya ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Tulsi Devi ki, Nitya Premanande. All glories to all assembled devotees. All glories to all assembled devotees. All glories to all assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Narochaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutiraye Nashtapraye Shabadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhaktir Bhagavatam Ashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. So this evening you're going to be reading from the Bhagavad Gita. If you could be please facing the lecture, if you don't mind, if that's okay with you. From the Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, text number 33. Where are we? We'll start with reading the Sanskrit. We'll read half line by half line first, and then line by line, then verse by verse. So I'll repeat first. If you can please repeat after me. Arjuna Vacha Yoyam Yogas Tvaya Praktah Samayena Madhusudana Etashayam Napashyami Chandlayat Stitistiram Shri Arjuna Uvacha Yoyam Yogastvaya Proktah Samyena Madhusudana Etasyam Napashyami Chandralayat Stitam Sridam. Arjuna vacha yoyam yogastvaya proktah samyena madhusudana etashyam na papashyami chanchalati sthiti stiram. Anyone wants to try? Repeat? No? Word for word translation. Arjuna vacha. Arjuna said, Yahaham, this system, yoga, system, tvaya, by you, proktah, described, samyena, generally, madhusudana, O killer of the demon Madhu, etesha, of this, aham, I, na, do not, pashyami, see, kanchalayavat, due to being restless, sthitam, situation, sthiram, stable. Translation and purpose by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and undurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Purport: the system of mysticism described by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, beginning from the words Sachau Deshe and ending with yoga parayah, is here being rejected by Arjuna out of feeling of inability. It is not possible for an ordinary man to leave home and go to scheduled place, to a secure place in the mountains or jungles to practice yoga in the age of Kali. The present age is characterized by a bitter struggle for life of short duration. People are not serious about self-realization, even by simple, practical means. And what to speak of this difficult system which regulates the modes of living, the manner of sitting, selection of place, and detachment from the mind from material engagements. As a practical man, Arjuna, though it was impossible to follow the system of yoga, even though he was favorably endowed with many ways. He belonged to the royal family and was highly elevated in terms of numerous qualities. He was a great warrior. Lord Krishna, he had great longevity, and above all, he was the most intimate friend of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 5,000 years ago, Arjuna had much better facilities than we do now, yet he refused to accept the system of yoga. In fact, we do not find any record of history of his practicing of it at any time. Therefore, this system must be considered generally impossible in the age of Kali. Of course, it may be possible for some very few, rare men, but for the people in general, it is impossible. Proposal: if this were so 5,000 years ago, then what of the present days? Those who are imitating yoga systems in different so-called schools and societies, although complacent, are certainly wasting their time. They are completely in ignorance of the desired goal. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshirunmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Ritam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahaganalalita Shri Vishakhamritamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming here on this day to our Bhagavad Gita class. If everyone can please face the lecture, that would be very appreciated. If you don't, yeah, that would be very nice. Since all you came here, I suppose everyone knows about Bhagavad Gita and what it is. Is that so? But I think it would be nice to just go through a brief overview, the backstory of how things actually escalated to Bhagavad Gita, how it actually came to be. As most of you know, 5,000 years ago, there was Krishna appeared in this world, and there was quite a historical moment. There was a book about it. It's called the Mahabharata, or the story of the Great Bharat. And at that time, there was one royal family, the Kurus, and they were the biggest, the richest dynasty in the whole world at that time. But they had some internal problems, to say the least. As most of you know, if you have a sibling or someone you grew up with, it's not always easy to grow up with someone. You often have fights and different disputes between the siblings. However, in this family, it was a bit more complicated. There was 105 siblings, and they were all boys. And yeah, at least for me, I had a younger sister, so I didn't experience much of this fighting or bullying between each other. But if any of you have older brothers or sisters, you might have experienced some bullying, you can say, to say the least. But here was to next level. You can say the bad guys or the bad brothers, they were bullying to next degree. They were, even from young age of 7, 8, they were always trying to, you can say, cause different difficulties to the other party. And they went to such degrees as poisoning and trying to, there's so many things that they tried to actually kill the other 5 brothers. And as they grew older, the mischiefs became much more, you can say, it escalated to a much greater degree. It was much more elaborate. So when they started growing up, the bad guys were trying to burn them, they were trying to kill them, they even almost destroyed their wife in front of the whole audience. And it's quite a serious thing, especially, it's horrible. And I just want to make it clear that the other side, the Pandavas, the good guys, you can say, they were not weaklings or some nerds that couldn't protect themselves. They were very powerful people. They were much stronger than the other bad guys, you can say. Just to get a better idea, they had Bhima and Arjuna, they were the most powerful warriors in the whole history of, last 5,000 years. Bhima had the power of 10,000 celestial, elephants. It's crazy. Like, he could crush anybody just with, his fist. Arjuna, he was the greatest archer, like, all time. He was like demigods used to call him up to heaven to fight like huge battles. There was one battle with Nivata Kavachas. They're basically flying tanks, you can say. And like demigods, those species that are so much more elevated than us, they were calling him to support the fight. And I found this to be very profound. It just try to understand how much of a difference there was. So even though the Pandavas were so strong, they were able to protect themselves. Because they had deep understanding of Dharma, and because they respected their older brother very much, they wouldn't do anything without his approval. And because he was son of Dharmaraj, he was, basically, the son of Yamaraj, the most righteous person in the world. He was he made things very clear, and he didn't want to do anything that's not according to Dharma. Anyways, so those brothers, they were kind of holding this grudge for many, many years, since the childhood all the way up. They were holding this grudge against Kauravas, the other side. And then finally, after being in exile for 14 years and many more other things, they finally got the time for the battle. They were finally able to face their bad guys in the fair combat and kind of make the last fight and come out victorious, of course. But in the middle of all this, before the war started, Arjuna, the greatest warrior in their side, he was a bit perplexed. He asked his charioteer, Krishna, to take his chariot in the middle of both sides, both wars, both armies. And over there he saw that on the bad side, he had his cousins, he had his uncles, teachers, he had his grandfather, people who he cared the most for. And that's when it actually clicked for him, that what am I doing? What's happening here? If this war is just so unrighteous, you can say, unrighteous, it makes no sense. How am I supposed to fight with the people who taught me, people who cared for me the most? And if I don't fight, then then I won't be able to perform my dharma, what I was born for. But if I do, and I do win the battle, I won't be able to be myself, because all the people who I want to see my victory are not going to be there. My grandfather, my teacher, people who actually made me who I am. And at this time, he actually got into his, you can say midlife crisis. He was just unable to understand what he wants to do. Things were not very clear. And so he was just perplexed. He had life quake, where he doesn't know what to do. And he was quite intelligent. And they say intelligence means the ability to know what to do in a situation when you don't know what to do. Let's try to understand this a bit deeper. Intelligence means to know what to do in a situation that you have no clue of what you're supposed to do. And lucky for him, his charioteer was Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not everyone gets it. Not everyone has this opportunity, but he was very lucky. More, blessed, you can say. So, in this situation, he understood that Krishna was not an ordinary person. So he asked him, first of all, they were friends. So as a friend, he asked, Krishna, what am I supposed to do? This situation makes no sense. It's just so perplexing. It just makes no, no common sense behind it. What am I supposed to do? If I don't fight, I have problems. If I fight, I'm gonna have problems. Please, just tell me what you want me to do. They had a conversation for a little bit, and then after a while, Arjuna understood that unless he actually surrenders to Krishna and asks in a submissive way as a disciple, he won't be able to get the real knowledge. And yeah, that's in the second chapter, verse 7. Krishna actually accepts him as a disciple, and the education begins, you can say. So before telling Arjuna what he is supposed to do, who is he supposed to be, he had to first understand who I am and what's my situation, what's my positioning in this world. And that's why he first explained him that you're not the body, you're something beyond, you're transcendental, that you're the soul. Let's just do a quick quiz over here. Let's see who is the atheist here and who is not. Who understands, who believes that they have a soul? Pick up your hands. Yeah? Actually, all of you are wrong. You don't have the soul, you are the soul. I tricked you. So yeah, just to make it clear, you are the soul, and you're in this body. It's like a computer. Think about it like a computer. So you have the hardware, you have the software, and you have the user behind it, the one who actually makes the thing work. So the hard body, the skin, the blood, the flesh, everything, the bones, is like basically your hardware. Then your mind, intelligence, and false ego, your identity, your subtle body, is the OS, the software. And the soul is the user, the one who actually guides how you're supposed to use the body. So yeah, that's quite important to understand. So actually, all this was leading up, all the backstory was leading up to our chapter. Right now we're in chapter 6, text 33. And in this chapter, Krishna explains Arjuna the process of dhyana yoga, also known as Ashtanga yoga, or basically yoga as we know it nowadays. They have different clubs, so to say, and different yoga studios where people go and try to meditate and connect themselves to the absolute through different asanas and different, of course it's much more complicated. There's asana, yama niyama, asana pranayama, and there's a big list of things he has to actually follow. But in a nutshell, what Krishna explains here is that, that a person has to go to some secure place where he can actually focus and meditate on the Supreme. However, actually in this verse, it's quite a turning point in the whole book. Mostly in the chapter, but it's quite an important point in the book. Krishna explains, Arjuna actually rejects, you can say, the practice of yoga, of Ashtanga yoga. He says it's not feasible, it's not possible, I cannot do it. It's just I am a Kshatriya, I killed people, I'm supposed to be doing something passionate, and that's who I am. And I cannot go somewhere and dedicate my whole life on trying to sit straight up and just focus myself on the absolute truth. And the main reason is because our mind is a very powerful tool, but for most of us, even Arjuna, he was saying it's just so restless. It's impossible to control it. It's just something that, he actually explains in the next verse that controlling the mind is even harder than controlling the wind. So it's quite hard. Think about it. Anyways, think about it. It's actually very important. The mind is a very powerful tool, but unless it's properly controlled, it's quite pointless. And it's actually only going to lead you to a much worse situation. So just before we go a bit further, I want to make it clear and try to think about it. What is the difference between austerity and suffering? Anyone has any ideas? difference between austerity and suffering? Anyone? Please. Sorry? Okay. Yes, fair point. Fair point. Anyone else? Please?
Suffering comes from expectation, desire, whereas austerity is dealing with what you have, not desire.
Yeah, well, it's very true. Now try to summarize all this in one word. How would you differentiate austerity from suffering in one word? Anyone? Anyways, I can say it. They say the consciousness or the mind. Because physically or externally, it might appear as something, it's almost the same thing. So maybe going through some severe situation in his life. And it might be an austerity for him, or might be a suffering. It depends how he takes it. Suffering is just if you're going through it without actually acknowledging it and trying to help, using it in a way to help you. But austerity is you, even if it happens to you, you consciously understand that this is the situation I'm in, and I'm supposed to grow from it. It's not just there for me to suffer. It's there for me to experience and grow from it. It's like, for example, the Pandavas, when they were in exile, they could be either suffering. They were in a forest for 12 years. It could have been a suffering or an austerity. It just depends how you see it. For them, it was an austerity. They took it up, they went, they did different penances, they were serving brahmanas, and they were developing pious credit. So it's important to understand the difference here. So the mind actually makes the difference between how you perceive the external situation in your life. There's a nice story. There was actually twins, two boys. They were growing up in a family of a drunkard. The father was drinking a lot. He wasn't very kind of high class. He was drinking a lot and he was, not a nice person. And then after a few years, when the kids grew up eventually, one kid, they're both twins. They went through the same time, like they were born at the same time. They went through the same, you can say, experience. So one became a very successful person, and he wasn't drinking. He didn't even look at alcohol. And the other one, he was quite low character, and he was drinking a lot. Like he was a real drunkard, even like worse than his father. So they asked section. So they did a small interview, and they interviewed both the twins, of course separately. So they asked the successful person, "Why are you who you are? Like, why did you become such a successful person, and why don't you ever drink?" And he said, "My father was a drunkard. That's why I saw how things are when you drink, and I don't want to be like that." Whereas the other boy, they asked him, like, "What's wrong? Why are you in this condition?" And he answered, "My father was a drunkard, so I thought that's the only way to do it. That's kind of what you are supposed to do." So in this situation, you can see how both the twins went through the same situation in life. The same thing happened to both of them, but it depends how they see it, how they perceive it, how was their mind or consciousness connected to it. That's who they became. That's how your personality develops. Because most people, they go through quite, of course not same, but most of us have our karma, good things and bad things. Life is always up and down. Like, when you go to, how do you call this thing? Like when you go for your heart check, it's all like shows like, basically, but there's a medical machine that shows your heart rate. Anyways, I forgot the name. So basically it shows that if you're alive, it's up and down. So life is always up and down. Things go bad, things go good. But if you can say line is straight, if everything is the same, it means you're dead. That kind of just confirms that unless things are up and down, you're not alive. So kind of, it's natural. Every person goes through bad things and good things. Actually, there's quite an interesting study done. They say that from the age of 5 to 25, The age and the level of intelligence correlates. So, like for example, if someone's 11 years old, he's definitely less intelligent, like he has less experience than a person who is 20 years old, and that's quite rational. But from age of 25 to 75, it doesn't correlate. It's different. It doesn't. Yeah, it's not the same. And the reason for is that because till the age of 25, generally everyone goes through the same educational system. You go to primary school, high school, college. If you go for PhD, and like if you do 5 PhDs, of course it goes more than 25 years, but you get the point. But then after the age of 25, you actually kind of go into your life and you start experiencing things. So experience is actually what makes you who you are. It depends how you perceive the circumstances and how you learn from it. But it's not just experience, because most of us go through experiences. Like the person who is 50 probably had much more experience than a person who is 30. But the person who is 30 can easily be much more intellectually developed than someone who is 50, because he wasn't going through more experiences, but he actually learned from those experiences. He was able to see, maybe not see in the direct moment, but he was able to learn. He was able to reflect on those moments and actually draw certain, basically lessons from it. So yeah, it's very important that you actually understand what happens in your life and try to connect through it and try to learn from it. And that's by using your mind. Anyways, that's one point. Shri Shri Radha Kunanda ki, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki, Shri Prabhupada ki. So anyways, as we see that the mind is a very powerful tool, that it's something very profound in our lives, and that if it's not properly used, it can make a lot of damage, and if it's properly used, you can make one very successful and it makes someone much more useful in life. But how does it work? Like, why does someone has more intelligence, or we can say stronger mind, while someone has not a strong mind? And it seems a little unfair. Like, someone has stronger intelligence and he can learn from lessons in his life, and someone else cannot. It kind of makes no sense. But it's in the same way, like someone is born a bit more built, someone is born a bit more skinny. But in a way, every single person can actually become physically fit. It's just the matter of practice. And like for yourself, if you're a bodybuilder or someone, you know how to actually do exercise. There's too many things you need to do. You need to have your goals, you need to have a proper diet, you need to have friends to actually kind of push you to achieve your goals. So if you want to get bigger biceps, you do curls. If you want to get better chest, you do chest press. If you want to get better calves, you do squats or deadlift, and so on. So what do you do to develop the mind? And it's quite interesting, because the mind and intelligence, they appear very similar, but they're not exactly the same. Intelligence is actually what guides the mind. Basically, what guides the mind is like, there's the famous metaphor about the senses, the mind, intelligence, and the soul. So you have the 5 horses, those are the senses. You have the person in the cart, that's the soul. Then you have intelligence, is a driver. You can say like Krishna was a driver of Arjuna. So in the same way, our intelligence is a driver of the soul, of us. And the mind is the tool that is used for driving the horses. So unless the intelligence or the driver can know how to use the mind, can actually utilize it, then there is proactive driving. Otherwise, if he doesn't know how to use it, or it's very free, he cannot even catch the tool to use, then it just drives you away. So in this way, we have to understand how to actually develop our intelligence. And that happens through different ways. It's like you have your good dog and bad dog, and they have a fight. And who's gonna win? The one who you're gonna feed. If you're gonna feed the intelligence, he'll win. If you're gonna feed the mind, he will take over. So in the same way, we have to feed our intelligence or do certain practices to actually develop our intelligence so it can overpower and actually control the mind. Only then can we actually achieve something in our lives. So actually, developing, you can say, our intelligence or mind is in a few ways. Psychologists explain that developing our mind is done by basically habits, by basically making a commitment and following it every day. So it's like, yeah, I want to read a certain amount of pages every single day. If you actually can commit to it, then every day, then your intelligence slowly develops. And if you don't, it kind of fails. Actually, I was kind of skimming through a book called Atomic Habits. And I think Thomas, what's his name again? Something Clear. He's the author of the book. And he explains that every time you have this decision to either follow your commitments or you don't. And basically, every time, like when this thought comes, it's like making a vote. Like you either you vote for the good habits or you vote for bad habits. And then sometimes, of course, you slack. But eventually, if over a period of 30 days, instead of slacking, instead of voting 25 times for the bad habits and only 5 times for the good habits, that means that the bad habits will win. But if you, like, even if you slack sometimes, it happens. But if you at least get 25 votes to the good habits, then you slowly progress. So in the same way, our intelligence gets developed. That's the material psychology. However, in the Bhagavad Gita, we get a deeper insight into this intellectual development. And it's called sadhana. Sadhana is very similar to habits. Yeah, basically, it's just Sanskrit word for a habit, because sadhya is the goal, and sadhana is the process. So yeah, basically it's the same thing. But in the sadhana, it involves something called mantra. Mantra is a word that, it consists of 2 syllables. Man means the mind, and tra means that which controls. So by using the mantra, you can control the mind. Because you still do it, you still have the same development from the psychological point of view by doing it every single day. But also it involves mantra, something that's beyond general perception of science. It's actually mentioned in the scriptures that there is 2 things that during Kali Yuga, they don't lose power. Because like most things in Kali Yuga, they lose power. Like Brahmanas, back in the days, they could just get a brown thread and curse someone, and they could be burned to ashes. But nowadays, Brahmanas don't have the power. So in Kali Yuga, there's 2 things that don't lose power. That's jewels and mantra. Jewels, because they have different medicinal properties, they can actually balance out your doshas or your planets, you can say. And mantras, they are what actually control the mind and make you much more intellectual, make you the best version of yourself. So in this way, our scriptures, they explain that we have 2 things that help us develop our intelligence. That is chanting the Maha Mantra. It's not just a mantra, it's the Maha Mantra. It's the mantra that surpasses in power all the other mantras. And we probably all heard it so much. It sounds a bit banal, that kind of is so powerful. But unless you actually understand it and deeply try to connect with it, and try to actually like really understand that this is the real mantra. Like this is what actually makes you, was actually makes the most impact. It won't give the full impact on your intellectual development. And there's another part, which is reading the books, reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Those two things are the main, you can say, pillars of developing your intelligence. So by practicing the mantra meditation, you can say, chanting the Maha Mantra, we do it 16 times, 16 rounds a day. You can start, of course, much less. You can do at least 1 round, 2 rounds, and slowly, gradually develop, upgrade your amount, but at least start with something, because this mantra can actually help you. Believe it or not, try it. Even if it's not about something spiritual, it's something like it's, at least for me, I know for myself, I experienced that if I wake up in the morning, that's the time that's the most impactful time to actually chant something, because you have the most amount of focus. That's the time before anything else, any of your other passionate thoughts, your work, your other kind of things come up in your mind. So the morning is the most peaceful time. So when you actually wake up in the morning and chant a good amount of rounds, your whole day goes much more effective and efficient, be it spiritually, materially, or anything else. I remember when I was in Gurukul, I think I was filming a cooking course for a little bit. And then like on those days when I had like really good japa, I was able to film things much faster, like it was very smooth. But those days when my japa was lacking, when I wasn't able to focus properly on the mantra, everything else, my whole kind of mind was not in place. I wasn't able to concentrate for the rest of the day. So to say, it's like winning the first battle of the day. If you can win the first battle and chant a few rounds properly, concentrate, then everything else in your day will be smooth and it'll actually be much more effective and efficient. However, of course, I can just be sitting here speaking to you about chanting, reading books, and saying how important it is, because like I'm living as a monk, and yeah, kind of I got time for it. I have the facility for it. I have the environment for it, because I know like when you're working, when you're doing a 9-to-5 job or something, or you're running a business, it's not easy. Like I have not experienced it, but I spoke to people who do it, and it's not easy. It's very hard unless you have the proper association. It's very difficult. They say that you are the direct reflection of the top 5 people you spend your time with. You're the direct reflection of the top 5 people you spend your time with. So unless you're in the association of those people who are doing it, it's very hard to actually maintain your values. And therefore it's understandable if most of you are not chanting or reading Prabhupada's books. But it's something that all of us should try to implement, at least to a certain degree in our lives. And one thing that really helps to actually connect yourself to Krishna consciousness and actually understanding the principles of this is trying to see your life as, how would you put it, surrounded or having a purpose to basically, if you have something like a deity or at least a picture of Krishna in your house, you can understand, you can connect every single responsibility, every single activity you do in your life to that, basically to Krishna. Because if you have a deity of Krishna or a picture, you can see that, you can imagine your house to be a temple. You can imagine basically your work is there to facilitate and be able to maintain your family who are the servants of Krishna and the people who run the temple. So in this way, if you try to understand and try to actually connect your whole life to Krishna, if you cannot have a deity in your house, try to at least have a picture, and try to just connect everything what you do in life to Krishna. And that way you can it's much easier to actually connect both lives. Because for most people, they have their 9 to 5 jobs from Monday to Friday, and then maybe on Sundays or Saturdays they go to temple, they take darshan, and say, yes, I had my material life done, I have my spiritual life done. But unless you're able to correlate both, able to connect, yoga actually means to connect both, you can say, worlds, you won't be able to actually achieve the goals that you actually want. So for this very reason, we have to understand that our mind is very restless, and the way how we actually develop it is by sadhana. Sadhana, or habits. Waking up early in the morning is not easy, of course, but at least try it a few times. Try it once or twice, and see how much impact it actually makes in your life. Wake up in the morning and try to chant at least one round of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on your beads or just on your fingers. And try to read at least maybe one page or just at least one verse of some scripture. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is probably the most impactful book to read, especially in early stages. And try it for yourself. They say that Krishna consciousness is not just about a belief or faith. It's also spiritual science, because there is a thesis, there is a hypothesis, there is a certain proposal that if you practice this, you'll have a certain result. That's the same as science. They say that if you drop an apple, it'll fall on the floor due to the law of gravity. You can try it for yourself. Take a piece of paper, drop it, it works. So you can say it's a scientific experiment. Of course, things are much more complex, but just to get you can say, basic understanding of how things are. So in the same way is spiritual practices. There's a hypothesis. There is something that is being presented. And what I'm trying to say is about sadhana. So try to implement this in your life, at least a little bit, and see what impact it actually makes on your greater day and life. So for this, just to quickly conclude our discussion today. So we started with a quick summary or backstory on the Bhagavad Gita. Then we had, then in this chapter, Arjuna rejects the process of dhyana yoga, or you can say the meditation or like yoga we have in the clubs, that it won't actually help you really progress in your spiritual life. And then the solution for it, what actually should we do if not practice yoga, is practicing sadhana, trying to develop our intelligence, making it stronger than the mind by chanting some japa, chanting the holy name, and reading the scriptures. In this way, our intelligence will be much more profound and impactful, and we'll be able to actually make a change in our daily lives and make us more connected to Krishna. Jai. Any questions or comments? Please.
Mantra is controlling the mind.
Yep.
What's yantra and tantra?
Yeah. So tantra is basically yantra. Yantra is a visual expression of the. How would you put it? It's not part of the yoga, but it's there as part of the other practices. Yantra is actually a representation of a subtle being. The different yantras for Shri, like Lakshmi. There's different yantras of personalities, like when you're doing yagya, in the yagya in the place where you do the fire, you draw a Goloka yantra. It's basically you're inviting the Lord into your yagya kunda. Goloka yantra is basically manifesting the whole Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan in that place. So Krishna can come and enter the fire, because Krishna doesn't come anywhere where there is no Goloka, where there is no the suitable place for it. So also back in the days, Brahmanas used to some brahmanas don't actually have deities because they're sadhus. They don't have the facility to actually do deity worship. So what they do, in the mornings, they just sit down and they draw a yantra on the floor. It can be Vishnu yantra, it can be Nrsimhadev yantra, it can be Sudarshana yantra. They're basically invoking personality into that place. And then they do the worship, and then, so no one offends it, they just clean it up. So that's yantra. And then tantra is basically combining both. Of course, there's like black tantra, which is using the mantra and the yantra for controlling different subtle beings. That's like what they call, tantra. Like that's normal tantrics. That's what they do. They also have white and black tantrics. They can do good things, they can do bad things, but that's the normal understanding of tantra. They use different knowledge that they got, and they also use the mantra to control those beings. Also, tantra, actually, Pancharatrika Vidhi, that's our, you can say, our understanding of deity worship. It comes from Narada Pancharatra. It falls under the Vedic injunctions of tantra. So the tantra can be used in many ways. It can be used for negative purposes. It can be used for counteracting those negative purposes. And tantra can also be used for worshiping deity. Like most of our palatis or our manuals how to actually follow deity worship, they come from Narada Pancharatra, which is a section in the Vedas that comes under the division of Tantra. So it's quite complex, but I hope you get the gist. Is it clear? Any more questions? Comments? Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitya Gaur Premanande, Haribo.
Mridanga. Why not? Only 20 minutes. Great, okay. Yeah, this bit. See clearly from here. That's right. He's playing.
Of course. Don't worry, Prabhu. You can do it. Hare Krishna.
I know. Hare Krishna. Oh, we need to ask Prabhu. I'll ask Prabhu.
What do you do if you have to? Then I go offbeat also. There we go.
Can I play with you?
Sure, yeah. You want to play Mridang and I play Kartal?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, that's no problem. Now play cards. Are you leaving your breed back here? You're leaving? Yeah, I'm saying. Or you forget to leave breed back?
I leave it.
Why leaving?
But today I'm going.
Oh, Krishna. Yes. श्री 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 राधा गोकुल नंद की जय, सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान की जय, गौर निताय की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। कि बजय जय गौर चंदेर आरती का शोभा, जय जय गौर चंदेर आरती का शोभा। जानावी तातावाने जग मन लोबा, दाकिने नीत चंद बामे गदारा, नीकाते अद्वैता श्रीनी वासा छत्रधारा, नीकाते अद्वैता श्रीनी वासा छत्रधारा। बोसी आचे गोर चांद रत्न सिंहासने, आरती को रेने ब्रह्मा आदि देवगाने, नारा हरि आदि कोरी चमर दुलाया, संजय मुकुंद वासु गोसे आदि गाया, संजय मुकुंद बाजे बाजे करटाला माधुरा मृदंग बाजे